Is it really that different working in Australia versus the US? The answer might surprise you. Today, we're diving into the differences between the corporate environments of Australia and the US, and one that actually shaped my own career journey and then also my family's. Hey everyone, my name is Ellie, and if you've been following me for a while, you know that I grew up in Australia, but also the US. So if you don't know already, I was born in Australia, moved over to the US, spent 15 years there, and have now moved back and been in Australia for 2.5 years. And today, I'm doing something a little bit different. First, I got a new microphone. What do you guys think? I got it for the podcast, Jam and Jelly, check it out. But I also wanted to sit down and compare the different corporate environments between Australia and the US, especially because my job is literally recruiter here in Australia for an agency. So all I'm doing is talking about jobs and job markets and all that stuff. So I really know what's going on. But also I wanted to compare it to my old life over in the US because the job market was one of the main reasons why I actually moved over to Australia for a better career and other things that we will get into in this video. So I'll be sharing everything from work-life balance to vacation times to holiday times. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Firstly, let's just explain what my own working environment is and what my own experience is. So I'm 26 years old. I have not had an insane journey when it comes to working in both Australia and the US. I really only have a couple years, but I think being a recruiter now definitely gives me a little bit more insight to just the job market and the corporate environment that you would have in Australia and the US. So do keep in mind that a lot of this is on my personal experience, but I did do some research into it too. So hopefully you guys can get a little bit more insight into what the differences are. So my working experience in the US was at 16, I got my first job at Trader Joe's, which is a grocery store. So I worked there for 4 years. Definitely different kind of experience. It's not very corporate, but my very first corporate job was actually working at a large tech company over in California. Very Bay Area to be working at a tech company. It is a global company too, so I feel like I got a bit of the understanding of like how the US was a little bit different to the other countries as well. But I was also working in sales, which is a highly competitive environment, but I was also working 100% from home, so completely remote. This was also because I got the job during COVID, and that's because I graduated right in the middle of COVID, so I didn't have as many options, I would say. Now, that was the job that I actually quit to then move over to Australia, and the reason being was that there were all these hiring freezes going on, and I waited for promotion for like 9 months. And I know that's not a really long time to wait for a promotion, but me, I want to climb the corporate ladder. I was like, get me the freak over to a place where I can actually climb the corporate ladder. So here I am over in Australia. I didn't move just for, corporate growth, but at the same time, it was a big reason on why I actually moved over to Australia. There's other things like my family here or whatever, but yeah, that was just part of the journey. So now I'm working in somewhat of a sales environment, but it is recruitment. So you're selling people, I guess, which is pretty crazy, but I do really enjoy it. So that's what I'm doing over here in Australia. And I've been doing that for 2 years, actually. I just celebrated my 2 years. And to add some perspective on why I actually moved over to the US in the first place was actually for my dad. He got a job opportunity over in the Bay Area. So we actually picked up the whole family from Australia and moved over for him to get a better career opportunity. So you can kind of see some back and forth, which is interesting that 20 years ago, you were moving to the US for opportunities, but here I am 2 years ago moving to Australia for an opportunity. A little bit weird. But with that, this kind of explains my own background before we jump into the rest of the differences. So a big thing that a lot of people talk about all the time is work-life balance. And I feel like especially I've been seeing it all over LinkedIn, all over, even Instagram and Instagram Reels and things like that, just about trying to find balance between your work and life. If anyone watched Severance on Apple TV, you kind of get what I'm talking about. So severe that people are making movies where people do not remember who they are at home, and they're very different from who they are in the office. I don't feel like I'm explaining it and giving it justice for the show, but yeah. Sorry, it's like 8 p.m. at night when I'm recording this because, yeah, I do have an 8 to 5 corporate job on top of the YouTube channel. So we're grinding. Yeah, work-life balance is super important, especially for myself. And that was kind of the reason on when I moved over to Australia. I was like, okay, I want a little bit more balance. Ironic because I came into recruitment and I have never worked so much in my goddamn life. It's crazy over here. So I feel like my work-life balance isn't really proof of what it realistically is like with Australia and the US, but generally what I find is that in the US, there is a lot less of a work balance, and we'll get into it when we talk about holidays. Let me freaking tell you that. But the US just has a little bit less of that work-life balance, and I feel like people are grinding more, you're hustling more. That's kind of what a lot of people's lived experiences are being in the US. I have a lot of friends who work in corporate over in the US too, and they definitely do work very hard, and it's very formal, very like you have to be polished a lot of the time, and you really have to like play your cards right. So with work-life balance as well, I feel like in Australia, people do not expect you to work past 5 p.m. Sometimes people do just to get work over the line, and that's completely up to them, but the expectation isn't there. And it's not to say that people are not hardworking. Like, people are incredibly hardworking in Australia. Like, do not doubt that. But there's just more of an emphasis on like, when you're working, you're working. And when you're not working, you're relaxing and you're switched off, and you're not expected to get on the phone or send an email or anything like that. Obviously, me working in recruitment is a little bit different, where it is like a sales environment. So the harder you work, the more money that you get paid out for, you know, like in terms of a bonus. But there is more of an expectation on that. Also on Fridays, we do have like a drinks card that comes around. So like alcoholic beverages are passed out around like 3 p.m. And that's an expectation for every week. I feel like Australia has a bit more of the drinking culture. So that kind of adds to the reason on why people are having a little drinky drink. At my first job in the tech company, we had this one time where I flew down to LA and we were all hanging out, and I realized how much they just had like drinks everywhere all the time. And I was like, I can't believe that I'm at work and people are like giving me alcohol for free. Like, this just feels so wrong, especially when you're growing up and in college. It's like you're hiding alcohol because you're only supposed to be drinking at 21. So it's always seen as like a thing that you hide. But then being at work in a working environment and they're encouraging it, it throws me off that that's just in corporate generally, not even just Australia versus the US, it's kind of everywhere. But in the US, there is a slightly more of an expectation of like working so hard that you're burning yourself out. You're, you know, hustling really hard. You're just working as hard as you can because like work is your everything. I feel like a summary of this video could be that Australians work to live and Americans live to work. Now, obviously that's not everyone's case, but this is more of a generalization that I would see. And that was kind of the reason why I moved to Australia as well, is because I wanted more of that work-life balance. Obviously ironic that I work in recruitment, so I really do not get it now, but I do just see it more in the clients that I work with. So I work with like big banks, big super companies, which is like your 401k, but there's like whole companies that manage it in Australia. It's a bit different, but those are kind of my clients, like all in financial services, and they do work incredibly hard, but when they take their time off, they take their time off, and you're not expected to answer emails on your holiday. Obviously in Australia, people still work on weekends, like they do extra work in that corporate environment, but the expectation is that is not there. Like, you're not expected to do that. That's simply extra, and that's on your own. Now that's a good transition into vacations and holidays. So in Australia, you call it a holiday. In the US, we call it a vacation. In the US, what the hell are you supposed to do with 2 weeks annual leave? 2 weeks. So out of 52 weeks, you only get 2 of those for yourself. Like, what? That is honestly why I did not like the US for that. I feel like that is like, that's no time at all to do anything. It's no time at all to do anything. Like, I actually hate it. And the thing is too, a lot of the time you have to use that 2 weeks on the forced shutdown that's in between Christmas and New Year's. So I absolutely hate it. I don't even get me started on like the parental leave and all that stuff, which, oh my God, it makes me so mad. But I feel like in the US, because you only have 2 weeks, like that time is so precious, but that even when you're taking that time off, you're probably not even completely switching off, because it's not like you're going to take and use up your full 2 weeks one time in a whole year. Like, that just feels like a waste of using it all at once. You probably want to spread it out, right? But I do remember seeing this one stat that the perfect holiday is 9 days for you to like reset fully and get your brain back to like being fully refreshed and then going back to work. But if you only have 2 weeks leave, which is like 14 days, it ends up only being 10 because I think they take out the weekends for it too or whatever. That's 1 a year that you get. 1 reset a year. Like, are you kidding me? And they also just have less holidays overall in the US compared to Australia. But thank God I did have a remote job, because that allowed me to not use my annual leave all the time. I actually got to travel and then work while I was traveling. So in that time, I actually traveled to Australia and I saw how my cousins were working. I saw my family was working, and I was like, I like this. I like this a lot. I like what you're doing here. I think I want to do it too. So I quit my job over there and in a month moved over to Australia. I have a bunch of videos on it too if you want to watch the beginnings of the journey, but beware, those videos are not as good as as what I'm putting out now, I'll say that. In Australia, for comparison, we have at least 4 weeks annual leave. That's just the standard across all of the different states and territories. And also some of the holidays are really random and fun. Like, so I'm living in the state of Victoria and we get days like the AFL Grand Final, which is like the final for a football game. Yeah, that's true for all you Americans watching. And we also get Melbourne Cup, which is a horse racing day. So yeah, that's a thing. But with the 4 weeks, oh my God, I'm able to take so much more holidays, and it genuinely makes me feel so much better, especially because I'm working in an environment that's like very sales oriented and very like hard work driven, and you're giving it your all the time. Like you do need the rest, you do need the work-life balance. So it makes me really happy and grateful that I can use those 20 days. I couldn't imagine working in a sales environment like this and only having 2 weeks. Like that sounds freaking insane to me. I think at the tech company that I was working at in the US, I did have some like mental health days that they were doing. I think it was like 1 a quarter, but that was more just my manager doing it, I think. I don't know if it was actually approved by the company now that I think of it. I don't actually know. But one big thing that Australia has that the US does not is called long service leave. So that means that when you stay at a company for 10 years, you actually get to take 3 months of full paid time off as part of your long service that you have attributed to the company. So you can also take it 6 months at half pay, which is great. And then you can also strike up other deals with your company. And I think this is such a perk for Australian companies because not only does it keep people staying at the company longer, but also people just are happier because they get to go and just travel and maybe see more of Australia or see more of the world and really take that time off and like improve their lives and recover, because all of life is not work. You don't have to work all the time. Like you do need the rest and relaxation too. Enjoy a brunch and enjoy going on a hike, like all this stuff that life has to offer. Like life is not all about working. And I feel like that is more of the American mindset. So coming to Australia, I was like, okay, I'm loving this. Catch me on my long service leave in 8 years, living it up. Let's go. Actually, one of my clients too, they are one of the big 4 banks in Australia, and they have this one deal where I think it's like if you use up all the leave that you have within a year, so you don't save any leave for the next year, you actually get extra leave to use. So if you use your full 4 weeks, you're given like an extra week or something. Like it's freaking lit. If you do work in the US though, I definitely want to hear if you guys have other perks, because I know it really depends on the company. Like you can work for a company that's doing like a 4-day work week and has a lot of work-life balance, but I just feel like the norm in the US is not to have all of that stuff. So I'm interested. If you know more, leave it down in the comments. For our next topic, it is sick leave and healthcare. So in Australia, you get paid sick leave. In the US, you also get paid sick leave, but the amount of time that you have for it kind of depends. In Australia, it's very dictated more by the government. They also have universal healthcare through Medicare, which is different in the US because your healthcare is connected to your employer. So wherever you get your job at, that depends on what kind of healthcare you have, what kind of health insurance you have. And if you don't have a job, a lot of time you are out of healthcare, which is so scary, especially for me being 26. At 25, I was kicked off of my parents' health insurance, as you do. It's actually just quite difficult to find a job in general right now in Australia and the US, in a lot of different parts in the world. So not having a job would scare the frick out of me, especially when it's connected to your healthcare too. So in Australia, just kind of having that peace of mind, it's like, if I don't have a job, I still have Medicare, like I'm still covered for my base costs. Like, thank God is there. Otherwise, yeah, I don't know how I would be feeling. In the US though, you can get quite lucky if you have a great company that gives you great benefits. Like that's awesome. And you can get additional things that you probably wouldn't get in Australia. But again, it totally depends on your company. Okay, now talking about money and career progression. The reason why we actually moved over to the US when we were kids is because my dad got a job over in the US. Obviously, with that decision, he is making more money in the US, not only because of the exchange rate, but just because of the job opportunities. So for that, you can definitely just earn more money overall. But I feel like you do got to sell your soul a little bit for that. And again, you can grow your career at a lot of top companies over in the US. But again, you got to sell your soul a little bit. And in the US, I find that a lot of people will switch jobs in order to climb the career ladder to get to their promotion. Where in Australia, people like to stay at companies a little bit longer, and I think it's a little bit clearer on what the next steps are there for their career. Also, especially when you throw in that long service leave, people definitely want to stay a little bit longer so that they not only can get that long service leave, but they can also get the career progression that they're looking for too. But I am recording this in the year 2025, where the job market is freaking everywhere. It's up and down. It's incredibly hard to find a job right now. So if you're looking for a job, do not feel bad. Like everyone's in the same boat. In Australia, you can still make really good money for the Australian market. Obviously, when you exchange it over to US dollars, it's going to be less. But I feel like the salaries and what's out there are totally affordable for if you're living in Australia. Well, I say totally affordable. Like obviously everything has kind of gone up in price lately and wages have kind of stuck the same. That's a whole other issue, but it's still at a point where it's relative to, you know, your cost of living as well. Like there's definitely other places in the world where your salary versus your cost of living is a lot closer in margin than it should be. But in Australia, I still feel like it's quite healthy compared to, when I was in the Bay Area, or even what I hear from people in London as well. Now I wanted to also talk about communication styles. So in the US, I find that a lot of the communication, when you talk in emails, in meetings, everything is very heavy with the business jargon. One of my friends who is in California also works at a tech company, and the way that she talks on meetings sounds so official. It feels like she is talking in front of the president or something like that. It's just always like, "Hi, welcome to today's meeting. I've adjourned this meeting because I think you were all..." I can't even freaking think of what else. I'm so tired. It's like 8 p.m. at night right now when I'm recording this, but yeah, everything is definitely a lot more formal, especially when you're writing emails too. It's not very casual. You don't really throw in a ton of smiley faces or emojis or anything like that. In Australia, there's still definitely a lot of respect that you write in emails, but it can be slightly a little bit more casual. So for example, the word keen, I did not know that people use that in professional settings. When I saw my first email from a client and they said, "Yeah, I'm super keen to catch up," I was like, what the hell? Like, are you reading this? I was just shocked a little bit more by the casualness when you're writing emails. Also, a lot of people sign off their email with cheers, or should I say cheers? That was supposed to be an Australian accent, but I don't think that really worked. Sorry. But the emails are way more casual. They're a little bit jokey, and people aren't super official on their emails. I take that back. People are still going to be official on their emails, but I find that people are just slightly a little bit more jokey, especially if they know you, or, if you have a good relationship with the person, you can still kind of have a little bit of a fun back and forth email, and it's not all super serious. Now, I feel like there's even more differences that can be said between the US and Australia when we talk about corporate environments. So if there's anything else that you think sticks out, definitely leave it down in the comments. I obviously have not had a ton of working experience in both Australia and the US, so I'm really keen to see what you guys think and if there's anything else you want to add to the conversation. Thank you guys so much for making it this far into the video. Much love, and I will see you in the next one.